Welcome to another edition of Don Hammond's Arlington Weekly News. Once again, I'm doing a variety of different character voices until someone complains. Here's the lineup for this week. The news, of course, Community Bulletin Board, and 55 Plus News. We'll also have a report on the most recent town hall meeting. That's the show. Now, here's the social media reminder. You can watch us on YouTube at Arlington Weekly News and the number 1, also on Facebook, and you can listen on the radio at WERA 96.7 FM. Now, on to the news.
As of Sunday evening, November 1st, reports show the number of confirmed COVID-19 cases in Arlington had exceeded 4,600. Regular viewers and listeners will note the intensified increase in our reported case numbers. Arlington's official results from the November 3rd elections were not determined as of our recording time. However, the unofficial results were as follows. The proposed constitutional amendment number 1 about redistricting was rejected. However, statewide, in Virginia overall, the amendment was accepted. The proposed constitutional amendment number 2 about a motor vehicle tax exemption was accepted. The Metro and Transportation bond issue was accepted. The local parks and recreation bond issue was accepted. The community infrastructure bond issue was accepted. The Arlington Public Schools bond issue was accepted, and the stormwater bond issue was also accepted. In the local race for the county board, Arlington favored Libby Garvey. Audrey Clement was a distant second. In the race for the school board, Arlington favored Christina Diaz-Torres, followed by David Pretty. Simone Walker finished third out of the running. For the U.S. House of Representatives 8th District, Arlington favored Don Beyer. Jeff Jordan was a distant second. The overall winner at this time appears to have been Don Beyer. For the U.S. Senate in Virginia, Arlington favored Mark Warner. Daniel Gade was a distant second, and the overall winner appears to have been Mark Warner. For the President of the United States, Arlington favored Joe Biden. Donald Trump came in a distant second. Joe Jorgensen came in third, just ahead of other write-in candidates. The overall winner was not determined as of our recording time.
I went out at sunrise on Election Day and took a look outside various polling places around Arlington. The trip took over 2 hours and 16 locations were recorded. The sample included the Arlington Traditional School, Buckingham, Barcroft, 4 Mile Run, Columbia, Jefferson, Riverhouse, Aurora Hills, Gunston, Wakefield, Washington Liberty, Woodlawn, Nottingham, Yorktown, Overlea, and Westover. There were no visible lines of voters outside the polling places, but on the other hand, there were no signs of voter interference either. It appeared that the increased availability of advance voting options resulted in a decrease in the election day lines. That is to say, I observed no groups of vehicles with banners blocking anyone's access or taking up parking spaces near the polling places. One effect of the COVID pandemic could be observed at the Swanson Middle School or Westover location. An alternate gymnasium was placed into service.
And now it's time for a long-time seasonal feature. I call it the Leaf Collection Report, but Old Ben has another name for it, the Suck Truck Cometh. Arlington Leaf Collection begins on November 9th and 10th. The first neighborhoods visited will be Alcova Heights, Arlington Mill, Arlington View, Ballston and Virginia Square, Boulevard Manor, Columbia Heights, Dominion Hills, Forest Glen, Foxcroft Heights, Glen Carlin, Long Branch Creek, North Highlands, North Roslyn, Radnor and Fort Myer Heights, and Waycroft Woodlawn. Also, Clarendon Courthouse, Colonial Village, Green Valley, and John M. Langston. Then, from November 12th through November 14th, the trucks will be visiting Aurora Highlands, Claremont, Douglas Park, Glebe Wood, Highland Park and Overlea Knolls, Leeway Overlea, Madison Manor, Old Dominion, Penrose, Waverly Hills, and Westover Village. After that, from November 14th through November 18th, the trucks will be visiting Ashton Heights, Barcroft, Bluemont, Cherrydale and the Cherry Valley Nature Area, Lyon Park, Lyon Village, Stafford, Albemarle and Glebe, Terra, and Leeway Heights. We'll have more information for other locations next week. That's the news. Now it's time for Community Bulletin Board, or CBB.
Hi, and welcome to CBB. Here's some outdoor fun for children ages 2 to 10. You only need to register each child, but caretakers must also attend. Come enjoy the story, Every Autumn Comes the Bear, with one of our naturalists. For information, call 703-228-6535. Meet at the Long Branch Nature Center. You can register online or call 703-228-4747. The activity number is 612920-D. That's on Thursday, November 12th from 11 o'clock to 11:30 a.m. at Long Branch Nature Center at Glen Carlin Park, 625 South Carlin Springs Road. Next, once again, we have a message for teens. Let's ride. Teens aged 11 to 17 can come take a bike ride with the Office for Teens. Join them as they make their way through the autumn weather in Arlington. You can register online or call 703-228-4747. The activity number is 782-018-66. That's on Thursday, November 12th from 4 o'clock to 5 o'clock p.m. at Bon Air Park, 850 North Lexington Street. Now here's an event for adults. They can take a deep dive into natural history that does more than just scratch the surface. It's about the acorns of the white oak, which are a significant food source for many different species. Discover how animals take advantage of acorns as a food and the strategies oaks have to overcome this grazing pressure for reproduction and dispersal. They will email you a link to Microsoft Teams before the program start time, so please have your device ready to go prior to the start of the program. Registration is required, so you can register online or call 703-228-4747. That's activity number 612-840-C. And it's happening on Thursday, November 12th from 8 o'clock to 9 o'clock p.m. Finally, here's an event for families. You'll need to register both children and adults since children must be accompanied by a registered adult. The whole family is invited to join up at the Gulf Branch Fire Ring for lots of old-fashioned fun. This engaging program will be filled with entertaining activities that may include stories, special animal guests, games, songs, and, of course, s'mores. For information, call 703-228-3403. You can register online or call 703-228-4747. The activity number is 612-850-E. That's on Friday, November 13th from 6 o'clock to 7 o'clock p.m. at Gulf Branch Nature Center and Park, 3608 North Military Road. Now it's time for 55 Plus News.
Howdy. Yep, it's 55 Plus News again. Now, this first event's about the study of words. You can learn about the history of English and have fun sharing words, expressions, neologisms, and other items of linguistic interest. The event will be facilitated by volunteer Stephen Waretime. The group usually meets on second Wednesdays, but this time the date's been rescheduled for November only. You can register online or call 703-228-4747. The activity number is 911-402-22. That's coming up on Thursday, November 12th from 10:30 to 11:45 a.m. This is a virtual event. Next, you can sit back and enjoy listening to songs from popular Broadway and movie musicals. They'll be performed by Julianne Corley, a soloist and longtime member of St. Matthew's Choir in Washington, D.C. You can register online or call 703-228-4747 and mention activity number 911-802-7. Now that's on Thursday, November 12th from 1 o'clock to 2 o'clock p.m. And it's another virtual event. Now this next event is called Better Know Your Ephemera. I thought I did from the time I tried to do too much heavy lifting, but that turns out to be something else. Are you a collector? If you're moving, downsizing, or helping a friend or loved one with these tasks, it's important to know what your ephemera or collectible memorabilia is worth. Jennifer Berman of Seriatim, a professional organizing and inventory management company, will share ways of appraising collectibles and determining the best people to consult. You can register online or call 703-228-4747, and that's activity number 911-400-26. That one's on Friday, November 13th, from 11:30 a.m. to 12:30 p.m., and it's a virtual event. I guess they don't want everybody bringing all their junk. Finally, have you ever wondered how the Glen Carlin Library and Carlin Springs Road got their names? Well, this event is all about a century of Carlins in Arlington. Now, the Carlin family played an important role in our community all the way from colonial times until about 1890. Several modern landmarks are named for the Carlins, and 2 family homes still stand. One of them is now a museum. Carl Van Newkirk, director of the Arlington Historical Society, will discuss the family's heritage and local impact. You can register online or call 703-228-4747. Activity number is 911-400-24. Now that's coming up on Monday, November 16th from 1:30 to 3 o'clock p.m. And once again, it's a virtual event. I guess they figure it's getting too cold to do the scenic bike rides. Well, that's about it for 55 Plus News. Now it's time for that latest Town Hall update.
The final October Arlington Town Hall meeting took place on Friday, October 30th at 12:30 p.m. Participants included Katie Crystal, Christian Dorsey, Dr. Aaron Miller, and Dr. Ruben Varghese. Dr. Varghese opened with a slide showing possible outcomes of COVID exposure. He reviewed the possibilities. He also reviewed previously discussed strategies to avoid exposure. He also advised advanced planning before attending large group situations. He also reminded everyone that even a mask is not hermetically sealed. Another suggestion was to make sure that ventilation in the home is good, and using a layered approach provides the best protection. He also reviewed exposure risk as opposed to complication risk. Those who interact with a greater number of people are at increased risk of exposure, but the complication risk increases with age. There are also other issues that compromise overall health that further increase complication risk. Both risk types should be considered. Another slide showed comparing scenarios. Dr. Varghese noted that flattening the curve refers to merely reaching and maintaining a so-called acceptable level of infection. It does not indicate elimination. Another slide showed various organizations affecting public health policies. Dr. Varghese noted that so-called perfect health has never been actually attained. It is a goal to be striven for. Another slide showed aspects of disease control. NPIs, or non-pharmaceutical interventions, include washing hands and social distancing. There are also environmental interventions such as washing frequently used surfaces. There are certain pharmaceutical interventions that help to mitigate damage from the virus. As for vaccines, they are not expected to be widely available until at least January or April of 2021. Societal support is not to be underrated. It's the totality of everyone in the area, and as such, it's very important. It covers issues like behavioral health, maintaining vaccinations, working with economic concerns, and personal protective equipment supplies, which are still limited. Another slide showed a slight increase in case count recently. He said it's not necessarily a spike per se. It may merely be a new, acceptable version of flattening, learning to, quote, live with the virus until an actual vaccine arrives. A question came up about how testing was going these days. A screen was provided showing the available testing locations. This included the name, phone number, hours, types of tests, and requirements. The next slide showed a number of at-home kits that were available. Dr. Aaron Miller came on and said that 74,502 PCR tests have been conducted. Of these, 14,041 took place at county-sponsored facilities. The number of available sources for tests is growing. Katie Crystal fielded a question about schools reopening. She replied that it is still up to Arlington County Public Schools and not the county board, as has been explained at previous town halls. The Arlington County Public Schools are still providing their own guidelines. That being said, the county board is in communication and providing money resources to try to facilitate reopening. Dr. Varghese said, making sure schools have facilities to manage all kinds of student health problems is important, not just COVID. There is a specific health metric that guides decisions such as school reopenings, but Arlington County Public Schools will ultimately make the final decision. In extreme cases, the governor could overrule that decision to close schools, but since the schools are presently closed, that's not a factor right now. Christian Dorsey says that the county board has provided what he believes to be the necessary financial resources for a safe return to school. Another question came up about testing. Dr. Varghese recommended testing, but there was no specific CDC advice as to when to test. The presence of symptoms is a good place to start. However, people should quarantine based on the exposure and tracing, not tests. Katie Crystal commented that there was a state and federal COVID support slide, which gave details about the funding. Details and video are also available online. A question came up about vaccine planning. This is a little premature, but they said that the state does have a plan for a vaccine rollout when the vaccine becomes available. A caution was made because most vaccines are expected to require 2 doses administered 2 to 4 weeks apart. The first tier of recipients is expected to be healthcare workers. Following that, older long-term care residents who would be at the greatest risk for complications. After those groups are taken care of, they are hoping to get 35% of adults to accept vaccinations. This is an estimated adoption. They're hoping for more. The locations for the administration of these vaccinations is a problem. They don't expect to do it at the schools as they have done in previous years for other situations. It was noted that the desire for a personal vaccination seems to diminish with the availability of a vaccination. They said that more than 35% acceptance would be great, but not expected. A question about the colder weather came up, especially as far as walking in areas where people are outside smoking. Is there an increased risk? Dr. Varghese said it would be wise to avoid crowds regardless of the weather. Being outside is statistically safer, but not a guarantee of safety. The other question came up about the enforcement of public behavior. Christian Dorsey said that reports still come in of bad behavior, but he reminded everyone that an ordinance attempting to enforce was abandoned earlier this year. They still hope to encourage good behavior, but have given up on forcing it. Another observation was made that the governor's mask mandate applies only to indoors, not outdoors. That being said, Arlington's website still accepts complaints about bad behavior. Another question came up about randomized rapid testing and whether or not the school system was planning on using it. Dr. Varghese replied simply that that is not yet a part of the discussion, and that, from observation, the behaviors of adults seem to be more significant than testing. Adult transmission has been the biggest problem so far. Katie Crystal fielded a question about geography and demographics. She pointed out that the county's COVID dashboard has those details. Another question came up about the availability of public libraries for browsing. These, they said, are limited by economics. The libraries are short-staffed due to budget problems. They have plans, but implementing those plans is another matter. The meeting closed with a referral to the county's dashboard. Christian Dorsey said, "COVID fatigue is a problem, but it must be endured." His final quote was, "We are where we are." The meeting ended promptly at 1:30 p.m. And that concludes this week's show. We will be back next week with more news from Arlington. Meanwhile, be careful, be safe, and be well. Meanwhile, going out and about, another week or so brings new construction activity along the Washington and Old Dominion Bike Trail. The "Do Not Use" signs have been removed from the water fountains, but they still don't work. The nearby playground equipment is outside of the construction zone, but it hasn't been trimmed or maintained, so it still can't be used by children. There's a new detour eastbound from Lee Highway. It has a narrow section with a sign instructing cyclists to dismount and walk. It doesn't seem to be effective, though. On a more positive note, progress continues on the expanded playground at Benjamin Banneker Park. Even though it may become too cold outside for most kids to use it by the time it finally reopens. And that really does sum it up for this week. We'll have more, much more, next week.